if freedom means everything to you, why aren't you free yet? Like genuinely, if your biggest goal in life is to have full autonomy, to wake up whenever you want, to work from wherever you want, not have to answer to a boss, then how is it that you're still stuck building the very thing that's supposed to give you that? And if I had to take a wild guess, you're probably telling yourself that, oh, I just need more time, or I need to learn a few more things, or I'm going to go all in on my business when I feel ready, or I'm still working on myself. But if you're being honest with yourself, you've been saying that for years, and you haven't actually got any closer to your freedom. You're just building an identity of someone who is getting there, but never actually achieving it. And the worst part is, you don't even think you're doing anything wrong. Because on paper, it looks like you're being productive. You're reading books, watching trainings, taking notes, planning things out. But none of it is producing results. Because none of it is real work, right? You're just in your head playing it safe. Still trying to fix yourself before you can go and create the thing that you want. And I say this because that used to be me. I used to behave exactly like that. In fact, this whole video is about this identity trap that kept me stuck in this loop for years. And it all finally clicked for me when I got into the superconscious work, when I finally learned about how the unconscious mind and how structure works and how it affects our life. So let's break it down so that you understand it as well. And by the way, if you're already familiar with the Enneagram stuff, you're going to love this because I'm going to use that as the framework to explain why you're stuck instead of going for what you want. So the Enneagram, if you're not familiar with it, is basically a map of 9 identity types that are all based on a core wound and how you unconsciously build your whole identity around that wound. And in this video, I want to zoom in on the type 5s because that's what I struggled with the most personally before I found the superconscious work. So type 5s are known as investigators or observers. And that's because we like to know things. And we also value, as I said earlier, independence, autonomy, privacy, and above all, an inner certainty. And most of us also carry this unconscious belief that we are not capable. So what do? We try to become capable by gathering more information, more knowledge, by endlessly preparing, by developing skills, watching podcasts, etc., all so that one day we'll be ready to build our freedom business or to do whatever it is that we say we want. Now, the only problem with that is you'll never actually feel ready, because if you run this compensating strategy long enough, you will eventually build your identity around someone who, yes, is getting smarter and becoming successful. And the key here is becoming, but never actually pulling the trigger. So every time you think about taking a big step, like launching your business, creating a new offer, showing up online, asking for the sale, etc., you don't move. You default back to, I should learn more first, or I'm not sure if I can do this yet, or let me tweak a few things before I share it. So it looks like you're working, but you're doing everything except what would actually create momentum, right? You're in your head trying to earn permission from some invisible authority instead of just going for it and creating what you want. Now, the way you probably rationalize it is you probably tell yourself that you're doing all of this, meaning not doing the work and not being disciplined because you value freedom, right? But if that's true, let me ask you, why aren't you actually free yet? Why aren't you making more money from your business? Why are you still waiting? And you can pause and think about it if you want to have a deep epiphany here. But I believe it's because of your identity. You built your entire way of being around the idea that you're not ready yet, that you're not capable. And that identity keeps you stuck in a structure that only allows for one outcome, which is oscillation. Meaning you go for it because it's too painful to be broke. It's too painful to be working in a soul-sucking job, having to answer to a stupid boss. But you can't fully unleash your potential and actually achieve the success you say you want either, because then you would have to accept that you are indeed capable and that you've always been capable, which is in direct contrast with the belief that you've built your whole identity around, right? That you aren't actually capable. And so to accept that you are, your current identity would have to die. And identities don't like dying. And so as long as you stay in that structure, you go for it, but then somewhere halfway through, your unconscious activates and it pulls you back and you sabotage yourself. So that's one thing. The other thing is we would have to define what freedom means in the first place, because I know a lot of people, including myself in the past, who would say that freedom is the ultimate goal. But here's the thing, freedom in and of itself is typically, not always, but usually not a true end result. Because when people say they want freedom, they usually mean that they want to escape something. Escape a 9 to 5, or escape pressure, or people, bosses, or escape failure, right? But real creation never comes from escape or solving a problem. It comes from an intention to create something that you love, simply because you love it, right? So the real question is freedom to do what? Because once you can answer that, once you can answer what you would be doing with your time on a Tuesday afternoon, that's your true end result. That's something that you actually want to create. And that's exactly where structure comes in. And I wish someone had explained this to me earlier, because then I wouldn't have wasted at least 7 years of my life. But what you need to understand is success is not personal, it's structural. Let me say it again. Success is not personal, it's structural. The reason you're stuck isn't because you're lazy or unworthy or unmotivated. It's because the structure you're living in only allows for stuckness. So let me break this down real quick, okay? Because once you see this, it's gonna change everything for you, I promise, okay? So currently, you're most likely living in what's called a problem-solving structure, okay? And the way it works is you start with an assumption, with the assumption that you are not capable the way you are to achieve what you want, right? So naturally, the next move is to fix yourself. How? By getting more knowledge, by healing yourself, by getting more clarity, by waiting to be in alignment, whatever that means, right? And what happens after that? Nothing. Because the minute you go take action, you realize that you still don't feel ready. You still don't feel capable. And so you go back to learning again. And the cycle repeats itself. And once again, I know this because that was my life for years. You know, back when I was part of this travel club as an affiliate, which I wanted to be the financial vehicle to be able to live the freedom lifestyle that I always wanted, I would go to these 2-3 day training events where they gave us a bunch of, techniques and strategies and mindset hacks and, all that sort of stuff. And I was fired up for a couple days, but I was also very worried about what am I going to do when this fleeting motivation goes away, right? Because I started with the assumption that I wasn't capable to build a business without that. So I was always looking for the next hit. See, that's the problem-solving loop. And no matter how hard you work inside the structure, you can never get free because the structure was not designed for freedom. It was designed to solve a problem that you created in your mind. Now compare that to a creative structure, which I help all my clients create from as well. A creative structure says, I choose what I want to create and I move toward it as I am. Not because you earned it or because you fix yourself, but because that's what you want and you're completely allowed to go for it and have it the way you are. And so to predictably achieve any outcome that we want in our lives, we use what we call the 5-step Superconscious Creator Code. And learning about that and actually applying it in my own life changed everything for me. Step 1 is choose a true end result. See, this isn't about fixing your life. It's about choosing something that you would genuinely love to experience just for the joy of it. Not, I want more money so I can feel enough. Not, I want a business so people take me seriously, but something that genuinely makes you come alive without trying to prove anything. Step 2 is set up structural tension. So once you know what you want, you look at where you are right now and you let that gap create a magnetic force. Like this is where I'm at, this is where I'm going, and you want to let that structure pull you forward. You want to feel that internal nudge of your future self calling you to complete your vision. Step 3 is embody the end result. You want to step into the feeling of already having that now. You let yourself imagine that what you want is already happening right now, because when you do that, 2 things happen. First of all, you pull in superconscious wisdom, which basically shows you the next action step that you need to take to bridge the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be. And secondly, you bring up resistance, which is all your fears and blocks that were buried deep inside your unconscious mind. Now, step 4 is the secret sauce, because instead of working through the blocks, like Ryan Holiday would say in his book called Obstacle is the Way, Instead, you want to speak directly to the superconscious, which is a higher intelligence that governs all your memories, beliefs, and identities. So you want to connect to it and give it a command to let go of what no longer serves you, to rewire the belief that I'm not capable, and to stop running that old identity that keeps you procrastinating. Now, this is what we call a superconscious recode, and it's one of the fastest ways I've personally seen to dissolve deep resistance without having to heal or fix everything else first. And step 5, take aligned action. Once the road in front of you is cleared from the inner resistance and conflict that have been holding you back so far, you're now allowed to take the next obvious action step that's going to bridge the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be. It could be a feminine action or a masculine action, but there is always an action step to take. Now, it doesn't mean that all your fears are going to be gone, by the way. The goal is to reduce your inner resistance to a manageable level, and once you've done that, you just have to leave the baby crying, so to speak, and just go for it. And the beauty of it is when you start living this way, something wild happens because you stop trying to earn freedom and you start creating it. You stop romanticizing how great and amazing this lifestyle will feel like because you start embodying it and start actually making it happen in reality. You wake up one day and you realize, oh shit, like this is actually happening. I'm actually living my dream life, right? Because you realize that you no longer have to become someone else. You can be the same you've always been and just create it. And so if that's the shift that you want to make, if you're done trying to fix yourself into success and you're ready to actually create the life and business you've been thinking about for years, feel free to book a 30-minute call with me. We'll talk about what you want to create, what resistance is in the way, and how to shift it using the recode process that I mentioned earlier. If you're open to that, the link is right below this video, so just click it, pick a time that works, and I'll see you on the call. It's completely free, by the way, and I'll do my best to bring you some clarity even if you don't end up working with me long term. So I hope this video helped you realize why you've been stuck and what to do about it. If it did, please let me know in the comments below. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.